No, you're
There we go, we're recording. So we want to start by welcoming you all to this evening's conversation. We are going to have another one tomorrow. It'll be same theme, but different topics and subject matter. So you're welcome to join us. My name's Stacy Zach, and I'm the manager of Workspace. Workspace is co-working, meeting and gallery space owned and operated by the town of Manchester. So it's an unusual investment by a municipality in the local community to support the growth of diverse and inclusive businesses, as well as artists. And through both avenues of business and art, we try to do community outreach, community building, and every year we have an art show that's called Perspectives. And we hope that all of our art shows bring together different perspectives. That's kind of what art is all about. But we do make a special effort to share information, to share resources, to share ideas, to bring people together so that we can all learn and grow from each other. Upstairs is our co-working space. One of our organizational members is RiseUP, which is run by Matt Conway.
Yes, so I'm a member here at Workspace. I also run the nonprofit, the RiseUP group. We are a statewide public art organization. We were founded in 2012 as a youth mentoring program. We did our first mural in 2015. And as many of you have probably seen on the streets, public art has just exponentially increased over the past 2 years. So we really thought it was important to, start opening up access to all of these great public art opportunities to more artists, and work with Workspace with their network of artists to really start passing this knowledge down. We have an incredible lineup of professional artists here with us today, some virtual, some in person. I've had the honor of working and learning and, seeing these artists make some incredible creations. Some of them are earlier in their careers. Some have been, doing this for 20, 30 years. So we really have a really astounding group of folks to share information. This is going to be a pretty casual Q&A style. We have questions for each of the individual panelists to talk about. And we also want to leave some time for the audience to ask questions too.
And for the audience that's here, as I mentioned, this is being recorded, so we will be putting it in our library of resources. Where we're sitting right now is the Main Street Gallery, because it's facing Main Street here in downtown Manchester. We have 3 art spaces, the Loop, which I hope those who are here will have a chance to see our staycation exhibit of local artists, what they did while they were staycating. Upstairs, we have more art in the co-working space. We call that our Creative Commons. But in case you're curious, we partner with other departments in the town of Manchester. This exhibit is put on by the Family, Leisure, and Recreation Department, and it's a vision for the future of how they want to evolve the public parks and public space. And I don't think those of you on Zoom can see, but there's a lot of public art and murals, and we have a sculpture project here in town. So it's definitely in the forefront of thinking of how important art is.
Yeah, Manchester's invested over $100,000 this past year in art and public art projects. I think they have to be one of the leading communities in the state pushing this forward. So it's been an incredible partnership. I want to now take some time to introduce our panelists. I'm going to let each one kind of do their own introduction when I'll shout their name, and then we'll get into the questions. So first, sitting to my right is Ben Keller. Him and I have worked together on quite a few projects this year, kicking off first with the giant Martin Luther King mural that is on the Mahoney Center. So Ben, if you want to just quick intro.
Yeah, as Matt said, my name's Ben. I don't really do panels like this often or public speaking, so this is pretty exciting for me. But yeah, so I'm based out of Vernon at the moment, but spent a lot of time in Willimantic and grew as an artist there over a number of years, started painting murals in that town, and then from there just expanded, work all over the state and New England now. And so yeah, partnering with Matt, partnering with RiseUP with CT Murals was awesome. And yeah, that was only like less than a year ago.
Yeah.
So it's been an awesome ride ever since. But currently based in Vernon, and that's where I have my studio too. So yeah.
Next up in person is Marc, Renee. I've had the pleasure of meeting Jay here at Workspace when he had an incredible exhibit of his work all in this gallery.
Yep. So Marc, Renee. I'm out here in Manchester. I live up the street, and then my studio is in my home. I've been painting for about the past 5 years, I would say professionally. But all my life, I've always been into drawing and painting and such. Like Matt mentioned, we met here, and then the relationship that we've gained so far has been awesome. Few projects coming up. My first one starting next week. So definitely excited to start that and see what else the future has to bring.
And for anybody who came to our Juneteenth exhibit here this summer, the front window, the wall of the Juneteenth flag, as well as the 5 beautiful cards were painted by Marc. Thank you for that.
So jumping over to our lovely virtual panel, I've had the pleasure of working with RC on a few projects, also on the MLK series. He is internationally known and also does work for Disney. So really honored to have him on the panel.
Yeah, just born and raised here in Connecticut. Although I do find myself traveling quite a bit each year. I have had awesome opportunities to really travel throughout the country and internationally doing my large scale murals. And now just reconnecting with Matt and doing all this work right in my home state is wonderful to be able to kind of express my love for what I do with the communities around me. Yeah, I'm just I'm learning as I go, the business of art. It's great.
Awesome. Next up is a tag team duo, Tao and Amy LaBossiere. I had the pleasure of working with them on several projects as well in the past, a couple projects for a school in Hartford, where we had youth participate in the mural project, and Tao kind of led them through the process, and also some restaurant projects. So if you don't mind introducing yourselves.
Hi, I'm Tao, living here at Hartford Art Space, downtown Hartford. My lovely wife, Amy. I'm a children's book illustrator at heart, turned mural painter and sculptor.
Yeah, so I started working with Tao in 2008, and he was working on commissions mostly for private art patrons and some, expanding into municipalities and other things. But he's been doing murals for a couple of decades now. And I really focus on, while I love to creatively collaborate and get in there, I focus on the business side of the business. So I can work on the business while he's working in the business, or maybe it's the other way around, but you get my gist. Thanks for having us. This is great.
Thanks.
So when I first wanted to do our first mural in Connecticut, I lived in downtown Hartford at the time, and the building I lived in, first floor all the way up to the 20-something floor, was filled with beautiful artwork. And on one of the pieces, it had a little token that had Joe Sam's email address on it. And so I reached out to Joe Sam, had no idea he lived in the building too. And he really helped to kick off our mural work in Connecticut with Jeanne Manzelli. But I'll let Joe give a quick intro, and also I'll intro Jeanne afterwards.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay, great. I don't know whether I'm on the screen or not. I'm the oldest one in the bunch, so I appreciate the opportunity to share anything I can with you guys. Born and raised in New York City in Harlem. And my major studios are in San Francisco, California, on the Shipyard. I moved to the East Coast to be near my grandkids and landed in Hartford, Connecticut via Manzelli. And I do a lot of public art around the planet. And I also, ironically enough, I do mixed media work. And one of the things that I've done, and I've done so much over the last 40 years or so since I've been a full-time artist, is I've never done a mural myself, but I've subcontracted out many muralists around the country and internationally to complete some of my physical sculptures and things that were required for buildings. I work with architects, landscape engineers, and I have an office for many years in an architecture firm in LA, designing train station, golf course, lakes, public schools, and these sorts of things. So that's my background primarily, but my love is mixed media art.
Awesome. So when I reached out to Joe, he said, I don't do murals, just like he just said in there, but he said, I have a good friend who does. And he introduced me to Jeanne, and Jeanne has been just an incredible advisor, friend, guiding light to this organization since 2015. We met in the lobby of the apartment building, and she passed on great knowledge then and has really been influential going forward. So Jeanne, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Matt, after that, I got nothing. Anyway, yeah, I was doing murals at the time. I was doing private stuff. I wasn't doing public, but I always thought that was where the juice was. That was where it was really going to happen. And seeing this happen is just marvelous. I think of myself as a kind of session player, a background musician. I know a lot of people. I've done an awful lot of stuff, but I myself don't think I'm very well known. I started out in jewelry. I had a 20-year jewelry career, and I just love jewelry. I mean, I don't care what it is. I'll wear 10 of everything. But after a while, I couldn't go any farther in the design work I was doing in New York and all of that kind of thing. I really wanted to be with my kids. So I decided I would move into the thing I was least good at. It was an interesting choice. I never painted, but now I've come to love painting. I paint all the time. I teach at Tunxus. And other than that, I don't know, man. I just talk a lot. Okay, that's it, Matt. I got nothing.
Awesome. And the best thing is we are still on schedule with getting through the intros. So that's great.
What's going to happen now is we've got some prepared questions for the panelists, but if you at home on Zoom have questions, you can put them in the chat and the panelists will be able to see them. And Michelle, who's back there moderating, can let us know what they are when they're appropriate. And then when after the artists, answer their specific questions, anybody here in the room as well. We do want this to be participatory. We know that everyone in the room is here maybe for a different reason, a different question. And we welcome you to our creative community because we want this conversation to continue here in public forums as well as amongst yourselves. So do let us know what you're most interested in, and we will try to direct the conversation there either tonight or in the future.
Awesome. So first question is for you, Jeanne. You've had a tremendous amount of experience as a jewelry designer and also pivoted into painting and other visual art mediums. What advice would you give an artist that is just starting out?
I thought about this, Matt, for a couple of days, and I bounced all over the place. I don't know. I see all these names, but I don't know where you're at in this whole thing. But understand first and foremost that whoever you speak to, they're speaking to you through the lens of their experience only. And you can list all the accolades. I can list my accolades and sound like, the best thing ever. But it was never like that. It was always one more piece of work. And when you hit the job and you get started on it, and the thrill of doing it, and when it's over, it's like somebody else did it, I mean, you don't write, it's the doing of it, it's a blast. Anyway, so I wrote some stuff down. I don't know how many of you are beginning your careers, that there's a lot of stuff in the beginning nobody can tell you. I'm going to try to hit the high points. Beginners sometimes will take their idea or product and create movement with it, create motion, create a buzz with it, and then wait to get discovered and carried up to the lofty, whatever they want. But this may happen indeed, but the artist or designer may not be invited along. Okay, now in jewelry, there's no copyright. So when I was designing jewelry and I was making my own and hiring my friends and selling on the street, did all that stuff. Anybody sit next to me on the subway, they were in trouble. No, seriously, I did that. And but when I was doing the shows in New York, people would come along with cameras and they just take pictures and you'd see your stuff showing up. Now, that's a bitter moment. It can create distrust, resentment, and a lot of grumpy gossip. So what happens when that happens? Because it does happen.
Jane, can I ask you what you're saying is people would take pictures of your designs and then recreate the jewelry, or they just show the pictures of?
Recreate the jewelry.
Oh, Lord, no. They make the stuff. That's where they're getting their ideas from the kind of entry level creative people whose work they have not seen before with the kind of vibe they haven't seen before.
Mhm.
So, and that's when you're in the kind of very competitive retail environment. Now, this is off topic, but Macy's, let's see, you learn how this goes. You think you've been, kissed by the god of jewelry or whatever. Macy's made a big order, but Macy's, I learned afterward, always goes and tries to get these big orders from new companies where you foot the bill to do it. And you're happy to do it, but it's 144 pieces is a sample order. And in Sterling that we were working in, by the time it got on the floor, it might not look quite as fresh. So here you've done all of this, they'll pay you. They won't pay you right away because they have terms, all these things. Anybody wants to know the particulars about that, I can tell you what terms are and stuff like that. But here's the thing that for beginners, you will lose time if you think that this has anything to do with you. Whether you get into a gallery, you don't get into a gallery, you get a gig, you don't get a gig. It doesn't. This is a collaboration of needs and service. So stay focused on yourself. You are your art. Stay focused. Accept every weird or wonderful thing that happens to you as right and correct, because each one will carry rewards. You have to do a little bit of prospecting for some of them, but it's all right. That's the lesson. So remember that, stay focused. Okay. Be polite. That's important. You want to be easy to work with or people won't work with you. Too much ego in the beginning is, no, that is the death card. And be easy to work, be polite. Know that everybody is somebody's daughter or somebody's son and they all ate paste and they're not bigger than you. So, but another thing is, the paste is tasty. Come on, it's always kind of minty. Anyway, don't compliment people that you are being interviewed by. That is a pet peeve of mine. People are always like saying, "Oh, I love your jewelry, and where'd you get your coat?" And it's like, leave me alone. I'm not here for that. Do not do that. It is a common rookie move. Most importantly, there is no such thing as failure. It's all process. Now, here's the big part of that. The flip side of that coin is there's no success. Okay. Success and failure only exist in the eyes of the observer. So when you can wrap yourself up in that in terms of failure, I have not failed, but also success is only elusive if you let it be elusive. And you can test this theory by going out and trying to fail. Because if you go and try to fail and you fail, ta-da, you have succeeded. Nah. Too funny. But anyway, so don't get wrapped up in that. But the most important thing is this: just keep working and love what you do. You are your art. So if you decide to do, as I have a lot of different things, so I have no brand, I have no anything, and that's fine. Nobody bothers me. I like that. So don't worry about success or failure. Be polite. Do not compliment the person you're talking to that you want a job from over and over again. It's annoying. And just keep working and love what you do. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeanne.
Welcome.
So next questions are for RC and Ben. You both right now seem to be the busiest artists that I've ever met. I actually I get excited for you when I see you on social media with your families or kayaking because I'm like, they're taking a break. This is nice. But creating new murals almost weekly, how do you market yourself? And what do you do to book these jobs? Ben, you can go first since you're right here.
So my marketing is it's pretty much non-existent. Like it's everything I do is usually through word of mouth, and all the clients that I'm approached by or inquiries to my website. Yeah, it's just through word of mouth. They're like, I'll post a piece online and it creates exposure on there because social media is a great platform for that. I think Ryan could relate, like even while you're like on site, people could like come up to you, and I mean, depending where you are, you hand them your card, and then you find out who that person is like a few days later when they like send you an email, which is pretty cool. But yeah, pretty much through word of mouth, I guess, as far as marketing.
So there's a reason why people are spreading, your name and through word of mouth. Like, what do you think it is that you're doing that gives people that confidence to pass your name along?
I don't want to go like too deep into that one, but
Paint like a badass.
yeah, like I think no matter if like the viewer passing by or like potential clients, an artist or not, everyone's able to recognize like authenticity and a certain skill level within like whatever you're doing, like whether you're an artist painting a mural, if you're a carpenter, if you're whatever plumber, like they just know that you're like an expert at your craft or professional. So they're able to relate to that, and there's like a mutual respect, I think. So that I don't know. Yeah, I think that comes across and
Yeah.
My turn. Yeah, I mean, my dad always taught me like, oh, like, you have to spend money to make money. Like, you really have to, put that effort in. And so I really found a lot of success building my brand image by doing a ton of stuff for free, like just doing my work and just leaving it where I went, gifting my what I did best, what I love to do with all these different communities, right? And really kind of just expanding that reach and doing those donations and really just kind of giving back. And through that, I found success in a way where I was getting projects that were coming in that I was actually getting, that were being funded. So I noticed that was like a big thing where I really had to put my time in order to see that change occur. I think when it comes to like, for me, it's very important to me to have a brand image and to have the continuity behind what I do, because I find success through people connecting my work, wherever they go. So if they see my pieces in different areas, they will be able to identify that they recognize, oh, well, this is an RC piece, which to me, it helps my image because that networking and that, the movement of people, suggesting, oh, well, you should have him and whatnot. I see more and more workload come in. So I think it's just the continuity behind the design and just that kind of structure and just going forward with pushing it that way, making sure that everything has a similar tone to it. That's where I found a lot of success there.
Can I ask, have either of you applied for any of the state grants early on in your career to get support? Or are you connecting with organizations that are doing that, like RiseUP?
Well, I mean, well, Ben, do you have anything?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely applied. I know I applied for the state was putting out grants during the whole pandemic year, and I don't know about the other artists here, but I got hit real hard with the pandemic and with my workload, and I really needed to rely on like the state helping out, you know, and but I mean, you know, I think like a lot of times like I was just able to work with just communities that were able to probably tap into that kind of state funding through their professional, you know, resources and their platforms. So I haven't really had to go and do that kind of legwork myself. It's always nice, always easy as an artist if you can have that kind of be held, you know, handled by other involved management.
Yeah.
At least for me, you know.
Jack getting paid.
Yeah. Yeah, going back to what Ryan was saying earlier, about starting off doing a lot of stuff for free or pro bono, to build up your portfolio enough to then like present it to a client is definitely true. And I could definitely relate to that. And then also having a consistent branding or just aesthetic to your work, so that when people see it, they can identify it as not just because your name's in the corner, but oh, that style, that's reflective or significant to like that artist, you know. And that's how I've tried to also build up my work too. Brian's got it down like to a T.
Yeah, and you guys both, I think, mentioned the authenticity of your work and, you know, experiencing that authenticity with, you know, all of these panelists. They've all told me no to projects before because it didn't fit what they wanted their artwork to come across as. You know, 15, 20 years ago when you were first starting, you may have said yes to some of those projects, but you know, you can, once you start building your brand up, like you're at a point of saying no. And I think that's a really great place to be in as an artist.
Yeah, yeah, but building up that that amount of demand to be at the point where you're, you know, financially or just comfortable enough to financially stable enough to say no to, you know, maybe those small projects or just something that just doesn't really fit your look or your portfolio. It's a good place to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next up question is for Jay. Your splash into the art world is a great example of just getting after it and following your dream. I always admired your high quality of materials, professionalism, and client relationship management. Do you mind speaking a little bit more about the materials you choose when presenting your work? And also, can you speak a little bit more on what drives the customer service side of your art business?
So I'll take the materials piece first. When it comes to materials, honestly, like everyone kind of works differently. It doesn't really matter how much you spend on your materials. I've seen people do awesome work with, you know, dollar paints and dollar brushes. And, you know, the $50 paints, $100 paints and stuff like that, it's not going to do the work for you. It's all in what you do with the work, and what you do with the materials that you have. The one area that I would say, as far as me as an artist who paints on canvas, I definitely spend money on canvas. I've seen a lot of people kind of use the cheaper canvas and it kind of bends over time, warps over time and stuff like that. So definitely there are certain areas of whatever field you're in that you should probably spend a little bit more money on or a higher quality. But definitely it doesn't have to break the bank. When it comes to customer service, I'm very keen on customer service. I like to break the two into kind of two categories, which I call internal and external. So external is what you're used to as far as working with people who are actually buying your work or potential buying your work and stuff like that. You always want to make sure that, you know, you're nice to them, you talk to them. If you're doing events, nowadays we're kind of in our phone a lot. Get out of the phone, talk to people who walk up to you, introduce yourself, etc. You'll be amazed at how many people actually like in your phone will just walk right by. But if you just look up and say hi, makes them stop. And I've talked to several people who, you know, they didn't buy because people didn't talk or just say hi. So just be aware of that. And then internal is just as important as external. So internal are going to be the people that you're working with that are like organizations like RiseUP and CT Murals, working with Workspace, working with promoters and people who are putting together events and things like that. You want to make sure that you're always professional with them. You're always nice with them. I think Jeanne mentioned it earlier as far as, your ego and stuff like that. Definitely make sure that you are putting your best foot forward. Making sure the expectations are clear, when you're talking with these people. A lot of times there's miscommunication because maybe one party isn't necessarily speaking up. Make sure that they know what you expect and they know what you expect from what you're doing for them. And then also being on time, that's very important. Following up, even if the people that you're working with are not necessarily the best at following up, if you're working on the job, if they're asking you, I would always just make sure that you're doing your end. And then it's also a mental note. There have been actual well-known galleries that I've worked with that when I worked with them the first time, it wasn't a great experience. And it was just a note for me not to work with them again in the future. But I definitely just make sure that I remain professional and move forward.
Nice.
Awesome. So Joe Sam, I am honored to have some of your artwork in my house. And, I'm just blown away by the levels of your work, and it's just incredible. You've also had a very diverse career, before your art career.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, how have those other experiences in life influenced and benefited your art career?
Well, being the oldest one on the planet in this room, my coming to my art is very different than 99.9 most artists who have established themselves. I never went to art school. I never studied art in my entire life. And I have never, I'm not uneducated. I went to graduate school, undergraduate school, but I studied something else that I love to do. But I remember as a young kid, and I remember the art teacher in the public school in Harlem I was going to, she once told me, she said to me, Joe Sam, you have an innate ability to do art. Do it for the rest of your life. Now, I didn't know what Miss Canassa was talking about, but I know she was an art teacher, and I was in like the 2nd or 3rd grade. And the only reason that I went to school is they gave me the responsibility of, in the old days, they used to have a blackboard around the classroom, and above the blackboard, there was a band that every, like Easter, Christmas, and whatever happens, I was given the responsibility of decorating that thing. So I fell in love with trying to come up with conceptual ideas to do different kinds of art. Now you got to understand, it was an innate intuitive ability that I always had. I graduated from high school. I was the art editor in my high school and in college, but I never was into going to art school. It just wasn't my thing. And I studied psychology, administration, law, etc. And I ran federal and big programs. But it wasn't until a dramatic thing happened in San Francisco, and all of you are too young to remember, it was the murder of 973 Black families in the Bay Area in a thing called Jonestown. And at that particular time, I was a big time federal agent and director of programs for poor people and people of color in the Bay Area. And I lost 93 children to those people who died in Jonestown. And it was at that particular time I said, a friend of mine said to me, Joe, I'm 40-something years old now. And he says to me, it's time for you to get on with your art. You're closer to where you're going than where you come from. And I said to myself, I quit all the boards that I was on. I was on about 10 boards in San Francisco, the San Francisco General Hospital. All these things were happening, but my solace for existing was I built a studio in my house where I began to create my art. So no matter what happened or what situation I was involved in, I was a very public person, so I wasn't somebody that no one knew who I was. And I changed my name from Joseph Samuels to Joe Sam, period. And that's when the media, everybody realized that I was no longer administrator, that I was now going to do art the rest of my life. And I tell a famous story about in San Francisco. Now you got to understand, materials and things I learned on my own, or I'll use mixed media. I was well known for that. And that's before I started doing public art. But the most fascinating thing happened to me that I tell all students when I give lectures all over the country on art schools internationally. I was in a small town in San Francisco, and they used to have this annual festival every day in a place called Sausalito, a very fancy place north of San Francisco. And every year they have this massive competition of artists in California to submit work for this big thing they have in this big public park. The thing in the park, you know, you were required to bring your own easel and put your own art up in this park. And I'll never forget, I got a letter from the association who was facilitating this, said, "Dear Joe Sam, you know, your work is interesting," so forth and so on. And they said, but you know, you're not accepted in this particular thing in California. And so I said, "Oh, that's all right," because you know, you have to stand out in the dirt with a tripod and with your art on it. And I thought that was crazy. But ironically enough, about 3 weeks later, I get a letter that says, "Dear Joe Sam, congratulations, you just won $35,000 of a national endowment art for your art." And this is a national thing from Washington, D.C. I'm one of the only 5 artists ever got that grant. And I said to myself, that is weird, you know, that this would happen to me. So I decided to just pursue my art to my fullest degree. I've been damn near everywhere on the planet. I've lived everywhere and created art everywhere from Germany to China to Japan, you name it. I've done residencies all over the world. And I moved and done public art that became, I don't know how to describe it. It's like the brand became Joe Sam. Many of you are not maybe familiar with me because all my studios and all my stuff is on the West Coast. And I've been at it now for 45 years or more years. But I work on projects that require 5 years to completion. When you design a building, a train station, a golf course, a lake, all these kinds of things, it takes another whole mindset when you don't go to art school, because the first thing, and we're not going to deal with racism, which was prevalent in the art world in the United States. And I went through a whole lot of that. So I met a lot of artists. I work with a lot of artists in the United States who are well known now. And I'm at an age in my life that, I don't know, I don't have to say, do you want to have a Joe Sam? I'm on a waiting list all over the planet. I just don't, I'm almost 80 now, I don't really care. But I always like talking to young artists and helping them understand that art is relative to what you create, and it's important that you maintain what I should say, the continuity about what you want to do. I lived in the East Village for about 10 years and Lower East Side. So I was down there with Jeanne Manzelli and all those guys who spray painted my apartment I lived in the village. And so I've gone through all that stuff. But the most important thing to me is the 4 or 5, 10 things I've done in my life that were amazing as far as I'm concerned, that deals with art. And one of the areas I'm always fascinated with is muralists, because I have a studio for 10 years in San Miguel Allende in Mexico. So I spent a lot of time down there. And my studio right now, and I had on my staff and my people in San Francisco in my studios. At one time, I had about 6 studios. And one of the people was a muralist. And he was amazing. And when I do designs, he would be the one who would, if it goes on a building, because most of my work, sculptures, a big 15, 20-foot steel that get painted by me in my studio and get shipped wherever. You know, I use trains, I've stuff by boat, train, and dealt with installations, you know, of public art all over the planet. But the thing that I cannot ever understand and underestimate is the seriousness in which people who are about their art are about their art, okay? And I've every time I give a talk or a lecture, I'm always astonished by how clinically and depressing some artists can allow themselves to be. And I can understand it, but it's one of the things as a psychologist, I always try to encourage young artists to do what you got to do and be strong. And you know, when people, I once got to statistics that between the New York City and the middle of the United States, you're talking about 350,000 art students coming out of art school. And that's from the middle of the United States, and going west, there's damn near almost as many. So every one of those people are not going to be, you know, Keith Haring and et cetera, et cetera. So you have to find your own place in your own locale, build your credit up there, and then that's where it goes.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Last but not least question, and then we'll open it up to the floor. Really excited to see what other dialogue, you know, will come out of this. So Tao and Amy, you have been working as a creative team for a long time now. I'm sure you have guidance and wisdom to share. How do you suggest an artist get started with marketing themselves and their work?
Well, I'll start out by saying that 25 or almost 30 years ago, when I first started trying to make a living as an artist, things were much different. We didn't have, I don't even know if we had cell phones yet. So it was all much like RC and Ben have even talked about, word of mouth. I mean, for me, I gravitated towards using my artistic talents, my skills, my eye, to be of service to businesses. So what I have learned to do for many years is bend my own vision to serve that of a new business that's starting out, and try to create a unique brand image and try to insert as much fine art into that branding as I possibly could. And a lot of business owners are, you know, they're not familiar with fine art as a business brand. But so ultimately, me doing the work and then word of mouth is what enabled me to survive as an artist. I just wanted to say that, let's see here. When RC was talking about doing a lot of free work, putting his time doing free work, that's something that I did, but eventually I came to resent it. So I don't do that much anymore. It's not that I'm unwilling to do free work. It's that I have to be able to choose to do it. You know, if I find a good cause, a good purpose, a good reason, I love to create art. So I can just be me and go ahead and create artwork. But for the most part, I'm an artist who uses my God-given talents to be in service of businesses. Now I'm trying to change my direction in life, and I'm trying to focus on what is my own artwork. And I haven't yet learned how to market that because I haven't developed what that is yet. So, but Amy's been invaluable in helping us survive as a business.
Yeah, and I think some of the key things that I do to help support the business side of Art of Tao LaBossiere is, one really easy thing to do is to keep updating the website. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you keep updating the website and you have your keywords that talk about what you do, the algorithms are going to pick that up in Google searches and things like that. The other thing is just have any kind of online presence. Do whatever social media that you feel comfortable with. You don't have to be everywhere. Of course, I think some of the younger folks are everywhere and are totally comfortable with all the social media. But even if it's just a couple, you know, share what you've got and let people know what you're doing in the world. The other thing that's really important is to have a support network and a team of folks that help you in some way. One of the ways you can do that is, one of the things we love to do is we love supporting other artists. I absolutely love RC's work and Ben's work and Jeanne's work and Joe Sam's work. I mean, and I'm just starting to get to know some of the other panelists. I've already started looking at their Instagram and things like that. Supporting other artists, there's enough work for everybody. And there's been times we refer jobs to other artists that would be a better fit. And being able to talk about art with others is just a really important part of the process. The other thing you can do to build a team, if you're not able to like hire people or whatever, some of the artists here do hire assistants and things. We try to hire assistants whenever the budget allows. Sometimes we do when the budget doesn't allow. But there are ways to get advisors on your side. So one of the things that I do outside of Art of Tao LaBossiere is I'm a consultant with the Entrepreneurial Center at the University of Hartford and Women's Business Center. And they have a grant program for Hartford-based businesses where they will offer free advising. So you'll have access to marketers, lawyers, different experts in different areas, help you write a business plan. So if anybody's interested in that, you can reach out to me and I will connect you with the folks to help you make that happen. But there are other, depending on where you are, there are other resources available, such as UConn has a small business development council. And you can go, no matter where you are, if you're in the state of Connecticut, there's different areas. There's SCORE, which is the Retired Executives Group. You can find people with the business acumen to help fill in the gaps for you. If you have the ability to partner with somebody, like Tao and I have this great, I collaborate with him creatively, but I really focus on the business side. So then he can, so if you have somebody like that in your life that you can work well together without, driving each other crazy, it's great. And most of all is just keep making your art and keep sharing it and trust that as you develop and grow, your career will too. I mean, it's amazing to watch people develop. And I'm really excited to see where Tao goes in this next chapter. And one more thing, you're already working on your marketing by being here, listening to all, I mean, I just got so much out of what everybody shared. So thanks RiseUP for doing this, and Connecticut Murals for CT Murals for doing this. Matt, what you're doing is great in the community, and I really appreciate everybody being here. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you, panelists, for getting through the questions. And we got through the questions in time, which is awesome. We have 15 minutes for just open questions. Please take advantage of the brain power and the talent that we have in this room right now. Do we have anything online that came through?
Question in the back, Tom.
Yes.
Hi, I'm really glad to be here. I'm a collector. That's how Stacy explains me to other people. I love that.
I now describe you as a gallery member.
All right, a collector. I'm a guy who likes art. So, and I think it is so cool. I'm sort of new at this. And I want to tell artists that are starting out, accessibility is so key for people like me. Meaning that, like, Ben doesn't know me, I don't know Ben, but we know each other via Instagram. Ben, I'm Tom Man 818. Is that I liked seeing your art on Instagram. I started following you, I started to follow Chris, I started to follow others, and eventually that's accessible. Then I get to meet these people in person. And as a collector, that's pretty cool. I gotta be honest with you, that's very cool. I meet Jay and I'm like, wow. And so then eventually if I buy art, the art hanging on my wall is from artists that I know. I like the bragging rights, okay? And I like also the fact that I have a personal connection. I have a problem with the Wadsworth. It's one of my favorite museums in the world, but it's a fortress. It is as uninviting as the Catholic Church. I love how this place and you people are accessible. And I have to tell you, I am a retired public relations guy, so I know how to market something. I was blown away by Jay's marketing and his exhibit. He had everything from wristbands to cocktails to 4 art pieces that were given out in a raffle. One was not completed yet. He would complete that. That blew me away, that brilliancy of how to market yourself, because that will stay with me. And also the last thing I want to say, you'll probably throw me out, but artists consider having sales once in a while. That's for us little collectors, that's a turn on. Lower your prices to something that we can do. And I keep on saying, is that an insult? I don't know. Don't take it as an insult. Take it as an entry point for people like me who want to start collecting art. If the price points just come down a little, you may see us. And again, don't take that as an insult. Just take it as a way of building a relationship with us newbies. And so it's just very exciting to be here. And thank you for letting me Sure.
With that note, I want to introduce Norm Greenstein. He is an artist. We have his work in the Staycation exhibit here. We often have his work around Workspace. He has a new book and website, and he was just featured on the 10 to 11 o'clock hour of the Today Show. If anybody on here wants a link to that fabulous 5.5-minute piece, I'm happy to share it with you. He calls himself the Parkinson's Painter. The reason I want to bring you up now is because you were in our Veterans Art Show and you had a large piece that was, you know, hung at a certain price. A young woman was interested in buying it, and I said I would, you know, ask the artist if, you know, you'd come down a little if you want to make an offer. And she made an offer that was pretty close to the price, but it was a little less. And you graciously accepted her offer. And she didn't know at the time, when she fell in love with the painting in the window, that the artist had Parkinson's. So when she found out that she was buying a piece and let us know that her grandfather had Parkinson's and had since passed, and they got to meet. And it was just exceptional to be part of that. So thank you for being here, Norm, and sharing your work.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for the panelists or any advice?
Yeah. As a new artist, you probably can't tell. As a new artist, how do you know how to price your work?
Go ahead.
Jay?
I know that's gonna be a topic tomorrow, but.
Yes.
So pricing your artwork is probably the biggest challenge I had when I first started. I did a lot of research online. No one can really tell you what to price your work at, to be honest. Things that I found that work for me, I charge by square inch. So you can choose a price range that you feel per square inch, and then based on the size of your work, you times that out and then you have your rate. And that is actually what I'm doing currently right now. And it works for me because every year I can increase that price per square inch, and it, you know, gives a little bit more and stuff like that. Some people also do by the hour. The only thing about doing by the hour is if you're a fast painter like myself, something, if it takes you, you know, an hour or two or whatever the case is, you might not be making as much. So definitely, you know, take some of the different ideas and different forms of payment and kind of gauge what people are charging and actually paying for it. And then start there.
You mean charging by square inch on the canvas?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's say, for instance, for every square inch, I charge $5, for instance, and then you 36 by 48, for that is times 5. That's the rate. So that's an easy way, and it's consistent.
And so it doesn't involve the sophistication of the work in terms of the labor time you're going to put into.
So it doesn't, but that's something that you can add on. So one thing that I do is if I find that, so my cards sold very well at the beginning of the year. So when I made another one, I still use the same square inch thing, but I added a markup to it because I knew it was something that was selling well. So you always have that free range to change and mark up that.
Do you think there is a danger of new artists pricing themselves too low where they price themselves out of the market for collectors?
Could I interject an idea?
Yeah.
Here? I've been all over this thing. I identify myself as a lifer. Anyway, but what I'm doing now is I find that there's this tipping point where you create a piece of something and you do it because you want to do it. You do it because you love it. It's the best of the series, whatever. So that thing gets bought right away and it is gone. All right. So all of its value went out the window with it. What I have been doing lately is, and then let's say you're a big hit doing that thing and you shift your attention, you shift your creativity to making more of those. Well, there's a very important change that goes on there. The first piece of art, you transcended and were able through your work to become a conduit. And on that page, you made a two-dimensional thing alive. And then you shift to putting it into production or whatever. And that isn't there, you know? So what I've been doing is taking time every day to work. Some pieces are good, some aren't that good, whatever. And whatever's good, I photograph it the best I can. I invested in a big Giclée printer and I make super high quality prints of my stuff. I bank the originals and take the prints, which are very high quality in and of themselves, and I can do as I wish with them. And every print that sells or that I gift, I have some things at the governor's mansion. I had some stuff in the governor's, whatever. Whatever of that is seen and sells raises the price of my equity, which is in the original works. And I don't lose them. I like that idea.
Yeah.
That's my best idea.
Question?
And the other thing you can do, we did a thing with a big piece Joe did. We took a lot of pictures and then we did what we called snippets, because there's so much material in every painting. So you can go and bite off a little piece here, contextualize it beautifully, float it in a colored background. You do all of this and you keep creating with the prints and you bank the original. The end.
Excellent. We have a question online. As a, no?
First, we have Tao and Amy would like to say something.
Excellent.
That was a comment.
Yeah, I just thought of something. I want to make a comment about relationships that promote your work. One of the most valuable relationships I have is with an architect and architectural firms. He's a personal friend. It's very organic and natural, but he has given me at least a dozen restaurants or more, and they're all wonderful jobs, respectful people, paid well. I mean, he's a respected guy. He's done over 70 restaurants in Hartford. And when he refers me, they automatically respect me. And then they eventually do because I try to do my best work. So a relationship like that, if you can find an architectural firm or designer, that might help. The other thing I wanted to say is that, we're all familiar with that process of creating, just like Jeanne said, when we're, as artists, when we create and we're in that moment of just sheer joy, the Zen moment of creativity, and then we develop this thing that turns out to be an accomplishment, that's magical. And then when you make the shift to turn it into production, there's a very fine line between creating magical works of art and then creating, basically reproducing your own work over and over and over again. And that's a hard line to walk between being satisfied with your own work and then doing it just to make a living. So that's something I'm navigating myself. And lastly, what I wanted to say is don't be afraid to promote yourself. Don't be afraid to speak up and invite people. So I'm going to do that right now and say that on Saturday, November 13th, we were going to have the opening reception to my latest mural, Be the Change, at 224 EcoSpace. And Be the Change is a play on words of Gandhi's Be the Change that we want to see in the world. But EcoSpace is an environment that's a community center. They have a pollinator mural, a garden in the back. And so we did the play on words and we created a giant beehive. And it's my first mixed media piece. I worked with PVC, I had to learn CAD design, CNC cutting. I fabricated metal bees, hand cut them, painted them, mounted them projecting from the wall so they cast shadows. I'm having a lot of fun with this piece, and I think it's going to inform the direction that I go with my own work in the future. So please, if you have 1 to 3 o'clock free on Saturday the 13th, stop by. There'll be a DJ and food. And
224 Farmington Avenue in Hartford.
that's my self-plug.
Excellent. If you send me information, I can put it in our newsletter that goes out once or twice a month, because we like to tell people what's happening business art-wise throughout Connecticut.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As a new artist, how much of a catalog should you have before putting items up for sale is in the chat box. So how much inventory?
RC?
Yeah, I could take this. So I think, Matt, I think you actually introduced that I am a Disney artist. And so I have familiarity with working with Disney Fine Art, and they distribute my art in the parks and throughout the galleries throughout the country that are Disney certified and wherever else. And it was really important for me when I was actually presenting my portfolio of work to Disney that I had a style that was unique to myself and something that set me apart from all the other artists that they had in their roster. Because when it comes to Disney art, and I think just any art in general, I feel like you're going to have art collectors that are going to gravitate towards certain artists, right? And they're going to want to collect those artists' works, and they're always going to, be eager to see whatever that artist puts out next. So you want to really kind of develop that following, and I think you could. I found success doing that through having an authentic and individualistic style that really represents like who I am and how I'm expressing my art through my graffiti roots, through my paint splatter. But I think that, in regards to the question, there's a lot that goes into it prior to really being ready to kind of get that body of work as a whole to be up for sale, because you really want to have all your loose ends tied before you're ready to kind of break into the art world and hope that people are going to want to start collecting your work. And I'm still learning every day. So I think it's just, I think we're all in this together.
I also have a comment on that. I think that you can also look for opportunities, certainly as the pandemic winds down, to exhibit in a group show and put your artwork for sale in there and just get a feel for people that might start to be drawn to your style. So even if you don't have a full body of work, being present and showing up, especially in this area, Hartford is small enough where we start to get to know each other very quickly.
Do you know any galleries that might be available?
Well, certainly I would imagine Workspace Manchester is doing group shows, and ArtSpace, when we open again, possibly next year, ArtSpace Hartford, will be doing some large group shows again. So there is opportunity out there.
And if you do participate in a group show, market it. We make special promos that feature each artist's work so they can promote it as, look, this is my show with a bunch of other people. But a lot of artists will promote it. Some will just put it on Instagram once, but actively get it out there so people will share and talk to the organization to see, can you help me? Can you give me tips? If they don't actively make you a special featured promo, ask if you can make one with their logo. Really get proactive about it, because we've had some amazing shows with some good audiences that deserve to have great audiences, and we're doing our best here.
Yep. I wanted to say that as a relatively new artist, I have been concentrating on, when I sell a painting or a book, I give 10% to the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's and to the American Parkinson's Disease Association. They get another 10%. And I really feel good that I'm painting, and I'm enjoying painting that I'm doing. But I think it's important for me to give back.
Yeah, great.
Jay, did you have a comment? We're gonna start wrapping it up soon. If anybody does need to log off, feel free. You won't be rude, or if you have to leave, but a couple more minutes.
So one thing I wanted to share for emerging artists, new artists, and this is something Jeanne and I spoke about a lot this summer, is just get yourself in the vibe. That's what Jeanne called it. Like, get yourself in the vibe, whether that means showing up at another artist's mural and just hanging out and soaking it in, or coming to events like this, or finding other ways to, like, if your art you don't think is at this level now, start being an assistant artist on projects. We have a muralist in the room, Chris. He not only paints murals, but to be in the vibe, he's priming the walls for us. He's prepping the walls for us, putting a clear coat on. So there's a lot of ways to get involved in the art world that, you don't have to be the star, of the art world to be in the vibe and to make a living from it.
Yeah, I feel like I've got an advantage, like I get to meet all the artists that work with you guys, I get to, steal little ideas from you. It's been a lot of fun working with you guys this summer, so.
Coming up for Workspace, if anybody's interested, we are hosting our 3rd annual Perspectives exhibit. We first did Perspectives, we were all different, we were all one. Then we did Perspectives of a Pandemic, which is fascinating. And then we're doing Perspectives of Home. We're working with a professor at UConn who's actually doing a research study of housing from an equity lens, the history of housing and migration and settlement here in Manchester. But the art show itself is just your perspective of home, what home means to you, sense of place, sense of belonging, a picture of, stockings hanging over your fireplace mantle. It could be abstract of the home kind of thing. And we welcome art of all mediums, and that includes performance art. We have to figure out how to make that work. We have a poet laureate who puts on poetry performances and open mics. I'm going to be doing a storytelling class, an autobiographical storytelling class called Memoir and Monologue. Actually, I got an artist grant for it, so that in the end, I hope to be able to pay the participants to share their stories. We're working with History Chip, which is a website that is going to be an archive of people's everyday lived stories. So there's a lot of stuff happening here, happening at other organizations throughout Connecticut. Connecticut Office of the Arts lists who they grant money to. So you can just do a Google search or contact us for references. We actually have a new membership here, $36 for an annual membership. And when people come, there's a real estate agent who wants to find an artist who can do renderings of houses. So when she sells them, she can give them to her client. I'm actually having trouble finding artists who do renderings of houses, but we want to make those connections and stuff. So we're definitely here to connect you to people. And again, it's an investment in the town of Manchester. We want to see artists thrive. We want to support artists. We understand the impact it has on community.
Yeah. And so tomorrow we welcome everybody back. Really excited about tomorrow's dialogue around public art, art shows, and galleries. We're going to kick it off by really giving everyone the scope on what goes into a public art production, because there's a lot of stakeholders involved and it could be really intimidating, but we really want to walk artists through that process, especially with the explosion in Connecticut. We also just launched a map of all of our public art we've done from Stamford to Putnam. Over 90 projects are uploaded. Wow. We expect to have all of the catalog of public art done by 2022. So like there's work that Ben's done, RC's done, like that's not on there yet, but we're working on it. So really exciting stuff happening here in Connecticut. Honored that you all came out to listen to the artists. Honored by the panelists. Thank you. And we hope to see everyone tomorrow.
Thank you, everybody.
So if anyone would like to head down to Urban Lodge to have a drink or hang out afterwards, I know Ben and I were going to stop by there, so would love to continue the combo down there. Awesome.
And you can pass by Ben's mural.
Yeah, and Ben actually has a mural right down there. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy, Tao, call me. I want to hang out with you guys. I want to just hear all what you're doing. Okay?
That would be lovely to see you, Jeanne.
I would love.
Nice hearing you tonight. Everybody was great.
Yeah,
Joe, Sam, I loved hearing your story. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Really loved that.
Yeah.
So I'm Ben.
This is really interesting. And one of the things I was listening to everybody talk. Tao, you and I met when we were at the same place when we met. We were doing show houses and doing all that stuff. Remember, that was like way back there.
Yes.
But if there isn't a kind of what can I say? A kind of I don't know. You start out over here, right? You're in I was in art school, and when you're there, you figure, oh, well, this is the thing, this is what I'm going to do. And then you study this guy and that guy and da, 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 da. So you sort of move in that direction and you get there and nothing's there. So you say, all right, went to the wrong place. Now I'm going to do that thing. At least I did. And I reached those goals, but the